I want to start today by running a scenario past you. It's a hypothetical, so just bear with me for a second.
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
All right. Picture a massive global corporation, and the CEO of this company decides, for his own personal reasons, to sue the company he's currently running.
Okay.
He then uses the company's own in-house lawyers to manage the case against the company.
So he's using their resources to sue them.
Exactly. And then he walks down to the payroll department where, everyone works for him. They serve at his pleasure. He can fire them. And he orders them to cut him a check for $10 billion.
So he's effectively suing himself and paying himself with the company account, using employees he controls to do it.
Right. I mean, if I pitched this to you as a movie script, you'd probably say it's a little too on the nose.
Yeah, it sounds like a satire of corporate greed or something.
Or a heist movie where the call is coming from inside the house. But here's the reveal. This isn't a hypothetical. This is the specific situation described in our source material about Donald Trump suing the U.S. government for $10 billion.
That's right. It sounds like fiction, but it's a very real, very complex legal situation. And today, we're doing a deep dive into the mechanics of how this is even possible.
And the source material for this is, it's fascinating. We have transcripts from a recent Senate Banking Committee hearing.
Right, specifically that pretty intense exchange with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
We've also got legal analysis of something called the Treasury Judgment Fund and the actual court filings about the leak of Trump's tax returns.
So the mission for this deep dive is really to unpack the how. How can a president sue his own administration? We need to look at what the source calls a conflict of interest loop.
And we have to understand the machinery of the Treasury that might just let this $10 billion transfer happen. I have to say, reading through the notes on this judgment fund, my jaw was on the floor. The source material explicitly calls this theft with extra steps.
It is a provocative framing, certainly. But as we peel back the layers, you'll see this isn't just about one lawsuit. It's a stress test of the entire check and balance system.
The stress test.
It really hinges on some very specific, kind of obscure legal machinery that most people just don't even know exists.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The setup. Donald Trump is suing the Department of Justice, the Treasury, and the IRS. He wants $10 billion. What's the core grievance here?
The core claim is a privacy violation. He's alleging that the unauthorized leak of his tax returns, which happened a few years back, violated his rights and caused him massive reputational damage.
And he's arguing the government is liable for that, for failing to protect his data.
That's the argument.
Okay, leaking tax returns is a crime. We know that. But the timeline is, the source material points out a huge irony here.
Yeah.
Who actually leaked the returns?
So the leaker was a man named Charles Littlejohn. He wasn't a government employee. Exactly. He was a contractor for a consulting firm, Booz Allen Hamilton.
They do a lot of government work.
A lot, yes.
And where is Mr. Littlejohn now?
He's in prison. He pled guilty back in October 2023. Right now, he's serving a 5-year sentence at FCI Mariana.
So his release date isn't until, 2027?
October 2027, that's right.
Okay, wait. Let's just pause on that. The bad guy has been caught. He confessed. He's literally sitting in a federal prison cell. So why is the lawsuit targeting the government for $10 billion? Why not sue the guy in jail? Or his company, Booz Allen?
Well, that is the $10 billion question, isn't it? In litigation, you generally sue where the money is. Charles Littlejohn doesn't have $10 billion.
But the United States Treasury does.
It does. But there's another layer to this timeline that the source highlights, which makes the whole thing even more interesting.
Yeah.
These leaks happened between May 2019 and September 2020.
2019 to 2020. So that was during Trump's first term.
Precisely. The agencies he's suing, the Treasury and the IRS, they were being run by his own appointees at the time.
You mean Steven Mnuchin was Treasury Secretary?
Yep, and Charles Rettig was the IRS Commissioner.
So let's just unpack this for a second. The source is basically framing this as Trump is suing the government for failures that happened under his own watch.
By his own people.
Wow.
That's the argument. He's effectively saying, my administration failed to protect me, so you, the taxpayers, need to pay me $10 billion.
And now that he is head of the government again, he's in charge of the very agencies he's suing.
Which brings us to that Senate hearing our source material focuses on. This is where the abstract concept of conflict of interest, it just stopped being abstract.
It became a very real, very tense conversation between Senator Ruben Gallego and the current Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
It was a remarkable exchange. You have Gallego trying to pin Bessent down on a simple question, basically. You can assign the check to your boss.
I watched the clips from our source. Gallego was pretty aggressive, but Bessent, he had this very specific defense ready. He kept calling himself a paymaster.
Right, paymaster. That's a very specific choice of words, designed to minimize his own agency in the process.
What does he even mean by that? That he's just an accountant?
Essentially, yes. His argument is that the Department of Justice, the DOJ, is the government's lawyer. The DOJ decides whether to fight a case or settle it.
So if the DOJ says, we agree to pay, Bessent claims his role is purely administrative.
That's it. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he just follows the law and hits send on the wire transfer.
He literally talked about hitting the button like he's a robot.
It's the robot defense. He's trying to wash his hands of any decision-making power.
But let me play devil's advocate for a moment. Isn't that how it's supposed to work? I mean, if a court orders a payment or the DOJ settles, shouldn't the Treasury just pay? We don't want the Treasury Secretary picking and choosing which laws to follow based on his feelings.
In a normal situation, yes, absolutely. You want the machinery to work. But Gallego's point, and the point the source drives home, is that this isn't a normal situation.
Why not?
Because this is a situation where the robot works for the guy getting the cash.
Because Trump appointed him.
And Trump can fire him at any time. Gallego points out the absurdity. The person approving the payment, Bessent answers directly to the person receiving the payment, Trump.
And Bessent admitted, didn't he, that even if he thought it was unjust, he'd still push the button.
He did. He said even if he thought the IRS code was violated, he would still pay if the DOJ told him to.
That feels like a massive loophole.
Well, it's what lawyers call a ministerial act, just doing the paperwork, versus a discretionary act, where you use your judgment. Bessent is arguing he has zero discretion.
But is that true? Does he have to pay?
To answer that, you have to look at where the money comes from. Because this isn't coming out of the IRS's petty cash drawer. It's from something called the Treasury Judgment Fund.
This was the part of the research that was totally new to me. I'd never heard of this.
Most people haven't. It's a fascinating bit of bureaucratic history. It was created back in 1956. Before then, if you sued the government and one, say, a mail truck hit your car, Congress actually had to pass a specific bill just to pay you.
You're kidding. So Congress had to vote on every fender bender involving a government vehicle?
Pretty much. You can imagine the gridlock. So in 56, they created this bucket of money to streamline things. They call it a permanent indefinite appropriation.
Permanent indefinite appropriation. Those three words together sound expensive.
They are. Permanent means the fund never expires. Indefinite means there's no cap on the amount of money in it. And appropriation means Congress has already pre-approved the spending.
So it's basically a bottomless credit card for lawsuits against the U.S. government.
In practice, yeah. It was designed to help victims get paid faster. But, and this is the key, it was designed assuming the government would fight hard against paying frivolous claims.
It wasn't designed for a scenario where the government might want to lose. So let's go back to Bessent's robot defense. He says, the money's in the fund, the law says I pay, I have no choice. But our source says that's not actually the whole story, legally speaking.
Correct. The source pushes back hard on this. They cite a specific regulation, Title 31 CFR Section 256.1.
You're bringing out the specific statutes. We love a good citation on a deep dive.
Well, this one's important. It says the Treasury must certify and verify payments.
Certify and verify.
And the argument from legal experts in our source is that certifying isn't just rubber stamping a check. It implies a legal duty to make sure the claim is proper and lawful. Historically, Treasury secretaries have been the final guardians of the public purse. They're supposed to be the brake pedal if something looks wrong.
So by claiming he's just a robot who hits send, he's essentially ignoring the part of his job that's about protecting taxpayer money.
That is the argument the source is making, yes. He's choosing a narrow interpretation of his role to avoid the conflict. And this brings us right to that circular loop we mentioned at the start. It's really important to visualize this.
Okay, let's map this out for everyone listening step by step. Step 1. Trump sues the government.
Step 2. Trump appoints the Attorney General, in this case Pam Bondi. She's the one who decides the government's legal strategy. Does she fight the lawsuit, or does she just settle?
Step 3. If she decides to settle and pay, the paperwork goes to the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who was also appointed by Trump.
Step 4. Bessent then uses the judgment fund, that bottomless bucket, to write the check.
And step 5. Trump gets the money.
And all throughout that process, both the Attorney General and the Treasury Secretary can be fired by Trump if they don't do what he wants.
It is a perfectly closed loop. There's no one in that chain, no judge, no jury, no member of Congress who isn't dependent on the plaintiff, Trump, for their job.
Which is precisely why the source calls it a shakedown. The whole adversarial system where the government fights to protect the taxpayer is it's removed.
It's a settlement negotiation where both sides of the table work for the same person.
Exactly.
Okay, we have to talk about the number. $10 billion.
It's a staggering sum.
I mean, usually when people sue for privacy leaks, they get, what, a few $1,000s? Where does $10 billion even come from?
According to the source, he's claiming reputational harm. The lawsuit specifically alleges that the leak of his tax returns hurt his support in the 2020 election.
Wait, pause. He is seeking compensation from taxpayers because he lost an election. An election that, I should add, he spent years claiming he didn't lose.
That is the irony the source material highlights. It's a bit of a logical pretzel. But legal experts cited in the source are very skeptical about this number for other reasons, too.
Like what? How do you even calculate damages on tax returns?
Well, to claim damages, you usually have to show a financial loss.
Yeah.
But the public reporting that came from these leaks showed that Trump paid very little in taxes, like $750 in 2016 and 2017.
Right. So if the leak revealed he wasn't paying much tax, what financial reputation was actually damaged?
That's the counter-argument. His businesses kept signing deals. He was reelected. Proving that leak caused $10 billion in actual tangible damage is legally very, very difficult.
And the source also mentions the other people whose data was leaked by Little John. It wasn't just Trump, was it?
No. Kenneth Griffin, the billionaire from Citadel, he had his data leaked too. And he sued. But legal experts really question if anyone can prove billions in damages from a privacy breach like this.
So the number feels inflated. But if the government decides to settle, they don't have to prove the number in court, do they?
And that is the danger of the loop. If the Attorney General decides to settle for $10 billion or $5 or even $1 billion, there's no trial. There's no jury to say that's ridiculous. It happens.
There was one other detail about Bessent himself that I thought was just kind of perfect for this story. A little color detail from the source.
Ah, yes. This came out during his confirmation hearings. Bessent is currently in litigation with the IRS over almost $1 million in unpaid Medicare taxes.
So the man overseeing the IRS, and who might oversee a $10 billion payout for tax leaks, is himself fighting the IRS over $1 million.
You really can't make it up. It just adds another layer of conflict. Does it compromise his judgment? It certainly complicates the optics.
Okay, so we have the loop, we have the money, we have the conflict, but let's zoom out. What does this actually mean for the person listening right now? Because $10 billion is so much money, it almost feels fake.
The source is very clear on this. This isn't abstract government money. The judgment fund is paid out of the general fund.
The general fund.
Which is the checking account of the United States. It's the same pot of money used for roads, for schools, for veterans' benefits, Social Security.
So if $10 billion goes to Trump, that's $10 billion that isn't going to those things.
Or $10 billion added to the debt. It's a direct diversion of public funds to the president's personal bank account. And this raises a systemic issue. The source references an academic perspective from the American University Law Review going all the way back to 2011.
What were they saying back in 2011?
They warned about this exact mechanism. They said the judgment fund's open-ended authority makes it vulnerable to misuse for political settlements.
But I'm guessing they didn't predict a president suing his own administration.
No, this specific scenario it's unique. It exposes a massive gap in our conflict of interest framework. The system assumes government officials will act to protect the government's money.
Not that they'd be incentivized to give it away.
Exactly. It challenges the whole idea of checks and balances. If the check writer works for the check receiver, there is no balance.
And there was a recent development, too. The Treasury canceled contracts with Booz Allen Hamilton.
Yes, the firm that employed the leaker, Little John.
What's the significance of that?
Well, the source questions the timing. Is this a sign of coordination? Is the administration punishing the firm to strengthen the case against them? It suggests the White House and Treasury are already moving in lockstep on this.
So let's wrap this up. What's the big takeaway here? We have a lawsuit that sounds like a movie plot. We have a Treasury secretary who says he's just a paymaster, and a $10 billion price tag.
I think if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about the vulnerability of our institutions. The force calls it a raid on the Treasury, but really it's a stress test.
A stress test of what?
The law.
The law and the honor system.
Can the machinery of government be repurposed to serve the personal financial interest of the person running it? If the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And if there's no legal mechanism to stop it because of this loop, we're in uncharted territory.
It really changes the relationship between the taxpayer and the leader. It's not just about policy anymore.
And remember, Bessent's defense was, I follow the law. But if the law allows a loop where the president can pay himself from public funds, then maybe the law itself is the problem.
It brings us back to that visual of the boss suing the company. If the boss wins, the employees lose. In this case, the employees are the taxpayers.
And the company is the United States.
This has been, frankly, a little terrifying to unpack, but it's crucial to understand these mechanisms.
It is, and it forces us to ask, what is the role of a public servant? Is it to serve the person who appointed them, or the public whose money they manage? Bessent's answers suggest he views his duty to the appointment as paramount.
I just hit send. That phrase is going to stick with me.
It should. It represents the banality of how these things can happen, not with a bang, but with a wire transfer authorized by someone who claims they had no choice.
Before we go, I want to leave our listener with a final thought to chew on. We've talked about the money and the conflict, but here's the provocation. If the people charged with protecting the public purse decide to position themselves as rubber stamps for the person who appointed them, is there actually any check left on the executive's power to plunder taxpayer money?
Or are we just relying entirely on an honor system in a situation where honor seems to be in short supply? It is a chilling question. If the gatekeepers decide to leave the gate open, the vault is exposed.
A massive thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the machinery of the Treasury. It's dense stuff, but it matters.
It matters immensely.
We'll be back with another deep dive soon. Until then, keep asking questions.
I watch where the money goes.
Bye for now.